Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. The August primary is right around the corner, and it's an odd-year election with a long ballot. KUOW's Kat Smith is here in a minute to break down the candidates and incumbents in two of Seattle's biggest races, the mayor and city attorney. But first, let's get you caught up. Speaking of elections, the 6 finalists vying for Kathy Moore's vacant seat on the Seattle City Council have a chance to make their case tomorrow. Interestingly, former council president Deborah Juarez applied for the job. She previously represented District 5, which encompasses Northgate, Greenwood, Lake City, and Crown Hill neighborhoods. Each finalist will have 3 minutes to make a presentation. The council members will then have a chance to ask questions. Hey, beachcombers, plan for the last super low tides of the summer this week. The lowest low, according to the Seattle Times, will be Wednesday and Thursday morning. There's a lot of cool shoreline to explore, but if you're looking for a more guided experience, meet up with beach naturalists from the Seattle Aquarium at Olympic Sculpture Park Pocket Beach. They'll be there Wednesday and Friday. And it's going to be mercifully cooler this week. The National Weather Service says temperatures will stay in the 70s today and remain in the low to mid-80s for the rest of the week. Wednesday looks to be the hottest day, so if you're headed to the beach for low tide, stay hydrated and don't forget the sunscreen. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. Maybe you've been distracted by national politics, but this is your reminder to check your mailbox. It's primary election season in Washington. August 5th is Election Day, and there is a lot to sort out. Primary races for King County Executive, 3 Seattle City Council seats, Seattle's mayor, and a lot more. Here to guide us through what's at stake and what you should know is KUOW's politics editor, Kat Smith. Kat, thanks for being here.
I'm so jacked up on cold brew right now. Let's do this.
Seattle summer. Here we go. Seattle has a mayoral race on the ballot this year, Kat, and we have to talk about that. Let's start with the incumbent, Mayor Bruce Harrell. His record holds a lot of clues about what voters could expect from another 4 years with him. So what has Harrell been like as mayor? Yeah,
so Harrell got elected in 2021 when the city was still reeling from the pandemic and from civil rights demonstrations in 2020. There's a spike in visible homelessness and crime and intense conversations about defunding the police. So Harrell came to office saying that he was going to bolster the police department and tackle crime and street disorder and stop people from camping in public places. And he has been aggressive about clearing encampments. Under his tenure, there have been thousands of sweeps of homeless camps in the city. That's according to reporting in the Seattle Times a few months ago. So visible homelessness is way down. Crime is way down, too. Now, the crime stats are part of a national trend. Crime has fallen from 2020 figures all over the country. But Harrell's homelessness sweeps are interesting because I think they're hiding some darker complexities. So last year, there were more people sleeping unsheltered outside than ever before in the Seattle King County area. 16,000 people. Wow. So there are more people living homeless than there are shelter beds for them. And those shelter beds have been disappearing, too. There are fewer now than when Harrell entered office. So on homelessness, bit of a mixed bag for Harrell. On police hiring, that's been a tough road, too. Harrell and his new police chief, Sean Barnes, say it's finally starting to turn around. Remember, there was an exodus of cops leaving the Seattle force starting in 2019 and accelerating during the pandemic.
A lot of hiring problems at SPD.
Yeah, and the department has seen sex scandals and discrimination lawsuits. And the city has really struggled to attract new hires to balance out attrition. In 2022, Harrell declared police staffing a crisis and announced a plan to hire 500 new cops in 5 years. Not sure we've really been on track to hit that goal, but like aggressive marketing by the city and big bonuses and a recent pay bump might be changing that. Last year, the force finally attracted more new cops than it lost. Not by much, but applications are way up. The pipeline is apparently flowing with potential new hires. That's the line Harrell is using on the campaign trail. Notes of optimism there. There is a big dark cloud hanging over City Hall, though, something Harrell's just starting to grapple with. The city's budget is a mess. Seattle is projected to bring in $240 million less in revenue over the next couple years than officials previously thought it would. So Mayor Harrell is ordering hiring freezes and has cut non-essential travel. He's going to have to implement some new taxes soon and fast. One thing he does want to do is he wants to change the city's business and occupation tax. Basically, it would increase taxes on the biggest companies, think Amazon, and it would actually lower taxes on smaller firms. And, we talked to Harrell last week about finding other sources of new revenue for the city, and he's looking at a host of options for closing the budget gap. But this all comes, Trish, as the federal government is in chaos. And it's hard to plan around that uncertainty. So Harrell's facing some challenges as he winds down his first term in office. And this is kind of fun. In seeking a second term, he's trying to break what I like to call the Seattle City Hall curse.
Say more.
It hasn't been around too long, but it's the curse of the one-term mayor. No sitting mayor has been able to win a second term in Seattle since Greg Nichols. And Nichols won his second term back in 2005. So Harrell's trying to break a 20-year streak of single-term mayors.
All right, Harrell's got 7 challengers in the race for mayor. Who are they? What do they say they'll do differently than our current mayor?
Okay, so we're crunched for time, so let's just focus on the top 3 challengers. These are the people who've raised the most money and have gotten the most attention. Katie Wilson, Joe Mallahan, Rye Armstrong. Katie Wilson is looking like the front runner among these 3 for now. She's raised the most money, about as much as Bruce Harrell has raised. And she's polling level with him, too. That's according to a poll by the Northwest Progressive Institute back in May.
Okay.
Publications like The Nation and The Urbanist have compared her to New York City's Democratic mayoral frontrunner, Zohran Mamdani. And Katie Wilson has been an influential populist progressive in Seattle for years. She helped create the Jumpstart tax. That's the payroll tax that we have on large companies that offer high salaries. And it's been meant to fund affordable housing, although last year the mayor and the city council dipped into this Jumpstart revenue to help balance the city's budget. So they kind of have Katie Wilson to thank for that lifeline in part. The second challenger that I want to talk about in these top 3 is Joe Mallahan. He is a former T-Mobile exec, and he ran for mayor before, unsuccessfully, way back in 2009. Then he lost to Mike McGinn, and now he's back challenging Bruce Harrell.
Okay.
And he does not like Bruce Harrell. And he even has a website that he started called badbruce.com.
Wow, okay.
Which he is dedicated to dragging Bruce Harrell on everything from policy to personal gripes. And then the third challenger is Rye Armstrong. They're a theater actor and a union organizer and a co-director of a prominent sustainability advocacy group. And Rye Armstrong probably has the least experience of any of these top candidates. They told us recently they basically got into the race a while ago because they didn't think anyone progressive enough was challenging Bruce Harrell. And that was before Katie Wilson announced her campaign.
Okay.
So all 3 of these candidates have been hammering Harrell on his homeless sweeps. Katie Wilson says that it's inhumane to push people from place to place when we don't have the shelter beds to offer them. Like we mentioned before, we do have this problem. She says that pushing people around, sweeping them from encampments without meaningful access to shelter beds, that is destabilizing for people, and it leads to poor mental health outcomes. And that, in turn, she says, creates public safety concerns on Seattle streets. And all 3 of Harrell's top challengers want to see more tiny homes in use, and they want more wraparound services for people with complex needs coming out of homelessness. They are also critical of Harrell's police recruitment efforts. They all agree that our police department relies way too much on a small force, stretched too thin, and relying too heavily on massive amounts of overtime. One area where they do all seem to align with Harrell is on the budget. They all agree the city's got to find new revenue streams to close this nasty budget gap.
Yeah, $240 million is a lot of money.
It's not chump change for our city, no.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Harrell, he has to defend himself. What is he saying on the campaign trail about his record?
Well, Harrell, he says that it's easy for these people to sit back and criticize when they haven't been in the trenches. He's been especially tough on Katie Wilson, probably because he sees her as his biggest threat. In a recent interview with KUOW, Harrell accused Wilson of wanting to defund the police.
Those are fighting words around here.
Yes. And he actually blamed some of the department's staffing issues on her previous advocacy for slashing the cops' budgets. Now, to be fair, Katie Wilson did write an op-ed in 2020 in support of defund. And she advocated at City Hall in 2021 for the council to budget less money for the police. But at this point, she now says that she has moved on from the idea. She says that she does not plan to defund the city's cops. We should point out that defund the police has not been a winning political slogan, like you mentioned that, Trish.
Yeah.
It's not a winning political slogan in Seattle elections. And people who previously supported the idea have worked to distance themselves from it. And I think we're seeing that with Wilson here. Harrell won his election in 2021 in part by saying saying that he would increase investment in the cops. Very much an anti-defund candidate. Winning strategy for him, as it turns out, so he's turning to that again in 2025.
Okay, that's the mayor's race, Kat. Another election on the ballot getting a lot of attention is the Seattle City Attorney's race. Let's talk about incumbent Ann Davison and what message voters sent by electing her in the first place.
Yeah, Davison has been the city attorney since 2021. She beat Nicole Thomas Kennedy. Davison is a Republican, and on paper, it seems surprising that she could get elected in a city like Seattle at all. Seattle's such a Democratic stronghold. So I should note that actually city attorney, along with all the other elected positions that we've been talking about today, are nonpartisan. You do not have to declare a party to run for them, but most elected officials, they tend to be Democrats anyway. And Davison actually used to be a Democrat herself. In 2020, she publicly declared that she was fed up with the Democratic Party, though, and that she was switching to Republican. She ran for lieutenant governor that year and lost. The next year, she won city attorney race. She beat out the police abolitionist, Nicole Thomas Kennedy. So at the time, Seattle voters were saying, when you look at how that race shook out, Seattle voters were saying they wanted someone who was more pro-cop than a full-on abolitionist. But 4 years later, Trump is in office. Do they really want someone affiliated with the Republican Party? We're about to find out. So at the end of her first term in office, Davison is really proud, she says, of the work that she's done on the so-called prolific offenders. These are 118 people who generated thousands of misdemeanor criminal referrals, robbing the same store over and over, that kind of thing. Davison says those offenders were not getting booked into jail before she took office and that things are different now. And as I mentioned earlier, crime is dropping in Seattle, but that is part of a national trend, like we've mentioned. So that trend is probably a little bit more complex than what the city attorney has control over.
All right. Who's challenging her?
Davison has 3 challengers in this race: Erica Evans, Rory O'Sullivan, and Nathan Rouse. Evans was a prosecutor in the Seattle City Attorney's Office and a federal prosecutor. She helped prosecute participants in the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Rory O'Sullivan is a legal aid attorney who helped create Seattle's Democracy Vouchers program. And the third challenger is Nathan Rouse, the King County public defender. Right now, Evans and Ann Davison are both the top fundraisers in this race.
What are they saying about Davison's record and what they might do differently, Kat?
Yeah, so our colleague Amy Radel has been doing some strong reporting on this race, and she found that Ann Davison's opponents, all 3 of them, are trying to make her Republican Party affiliation a big issue in this campaign. And curiously, Davison just doesn't want to talk about it. She says the fact that she's a Republican is irrelevant in this race because
it's nonpartisan, yeah.
Exactly. And she says that focusing on local issues is the best way to address public safety in Seattle instead of talking about national stuff. But again, Trump is in office and he's not popular here, and Davison's opponents are trying to play up the Republican connection. So O'Sullivan and Rouse both say Davison should be more aggressive in filing lawsuits against the Trump administration. And she has joined other cities and filing stuff, but they want to see more from her. Evans says it's, quote, disgraceful that Davison is a Republican, and notes that Davison switched parties back while Trump was serving in his first term in 2020. So they're hammering her on this, and she just doesn't want to talk about it. Putting aside the Trump stuff, though, all these challengers are critical of Davison's decision to pull out of the community court program in 2023. This was Seattle's municipal court alternative to prosecution for low-level misdemeanor cases. It was designed to connect people with services and require them to do community service. Davison said it just wasn't effective. Since ending the program, she says her office has actually expanded the number of diversion programs that are available in Seattle, and she's currently working on a new diversion program specifically for drug users to keep them out of jail. This is an issue for her opponents. Erica Evans, for example, says that if she's elected, she'd create a new version of the community court program that Davison ended. And Rouse says that he'd try to expand diversion programs as much as possible to route as many people away from jail entirely.
Kat, do you have any predictions about who's going to win these races?
No, I do not. I do not have any predictions, but I do feel like there is a moderate versus progressive fight happening right now. Like I said, a lot of these people are Democrats, even though their positions are nonpartisan. But I think in 2023, we saw a moderate backlash at most of our city council in Seattle got replaced by these moderate candidates. Bruce Harrell endorsed 5 of them. And so I think for the last couple of years, Bruce Harrell has kind of been, at the top of this trifecta of moderate power in Seattle. And I think people are going to be responding to that with their votes.
KUOW politics editor Kat Smith. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Today's episode was produced by Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Vaughn Jones. Our production team also includes Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Andy Hurst, Shane Mailing, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.